In the Sahel region, where instability and shifting alliances have long been the norm, a new chapter is being written. March 26, 2025, a day that marks not just a change of leadership, but the beginning of a transformation that could reshape Niger's future. General Abdourahamane Tiani, a military man who once held the highest rank in the army, now stands as the country's president, sworn in under the Charter of Refoundation. Just a few years back, he promised to do what is in Niger's best interests.
Le mercredi 26 juillet 2023, les forces de défense et de sécurité regroupées au sein du Conseil national pour la sauvegarde de la patrie, CNSP, ont mis fin au régime de la 7e République. L'action du CNSP est motivée par la seule volonté de préserver notre chère patrie face.
But this isn't just another presidential handover. This moment signals a definitive break from the past, a direct challenge to the democratic systems that have struggled to keep the country stable. As Tiani takes the reins, questions arise. What does his leadership mean for Niger, for the Sahel, and for the delicate balance of power in West Africa? Let's find out. When General Abdourahamane Tiani was sworn in as president of Niger on March 26, 2025, under the Charter of Refoundation, the country found itself at the precipice of a new political era. Tiani's rise to power wasn't just about assuming the highest office. It was about discarding the very structures that had once defined Niger's political system. The Charter of Refoundation doesn't merely adjust or amend the old constitution, it obliterates it, replacing it with a document that aligns closely with Tiani's vision for Niger's future. In a single stroke, the democratic framework that had been in place for decades has been replaced by a military-led government, one whose future remains both uncertain and deeply consequential for the country's trajectory. Unlike many previous military regimes that operated under temporary charters or transitional mandates, Tiani's Charter of Refoundation is strikingly bold in its scope and long-term ambition. At its core, this document establishes Tiani as the president of the country for a 5-year transitional period, though this period is anything but fixed. The transition is flexible, with the charter granting Tiani the power to extend his rule depending on the political, security, and regional situation in Niger and the wider Sahel region. This flexibility not only enhances Tiani's control, but also sets the stage for a prolonged military rule that might last much longer than initially intended. This new reality, underpinned by the Charter of Refoundation, is nothing short of a departure from the systems that had defined Niger's governance until now. The most significant shift is the dissolution of political parties. By eliminating all political parties, the Charter effectively erases the framework of competitive democracy that had been central to Niger's post-independence politics. This move is a sharp repudiation of the democratic systems that were increasingly seen as flawed and incapable of addressing the pressing challenges facing the country. Political parties, often seen as fragmented and divided, are now relegated to history. In their place, a unified military-led government takes charge, claiming the mantle of national unity. For many Nigerians, this change is a mixed blessing. On the one hand, there is a sense of relief. Under previous civilian governments, the country had experienced political instability, corruption, and perceived ineffectiveness. Despite periodic elections, dissatisfaction had been growing with how the country was being governed. The belief that political parties and elected officials were only interested in preserving their power had eroded trust in the democratic process. Against this backdrop, Tiani's military-led government is seen by some as a necessary corrective. His supporters argue that a strong, centralized leadership, unencumbered by the fragmentation of political parties, offers a clearer path forward for Niger. With the Charter of Refoundation in place, there is now a sense of purpose and a belief that under Tiani's leadership, the country can address its problems head-on. But while many view Tiani's rise as a solution to Niger's woes, others remain deeply concerned about the implications of this new political order. The military, despite the legitimacy it may have earned from the public, is not traditionally known for safeguarding democratic freedoms. Military rule often comes with the erosion of civil rights and a narrowing of political space. Under the Charter of Refoundation, This risk is all too real. The Charter's dissolution of political parties also paves the way for the weakening of other democratic institutions, particularly the judiciary, the press, and civil society organizations. In the absence of a political opposition, the government now has greater leeway to stifle dissent, control the media narrative, and ensure that no competing voices challenge the regime's authority. While Tiani's government is positioned as a response to the failures of the previous system, there is an undercurrent of concern that it could eventually stifle the very freedoms that many Nigerians fought for in the past. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video, and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Tiani's control over the military also grants him a level of influence that no civilian leader could ever wield. Having been promoted to general, Tiani's military background makes him not just a president, but a commander with unmatched authority. This is more than just symbolic. His position in the military hierarchy strengthens his control over the country's security apparatus, which is critical in a region as volatile as the Sahel. Tiani has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to his vision of national sovereignty, with an emphasis on Niger's independence from foreign influence. His military background ensures that no civilian or political force can challenge his policies, providing him with a level of stability that has been absent in the country's past. In a region marked by insurgencies and conflict, the military is often the only institution capable of maintaining order and pushing back against external threats. Tiani's leadership thus promises a level of stability that many see as vital in a country beset by both internal and external challenges. Yet, this very consolidation of power could prove to be a double-edged sword. While the military may bring order in the short term, history has shown that military leaders can become entrenched, using the stability they offer to justify longer and longer periods of control. Tiani's 5-year transitional period, with the option for extension, raises critical questions about the future of Niger's political development. Will this period be used to lay the groundwork for a return to civilian rule, or will it mark the start of a new era of military dominance, one that could reshape the Sahel for years to come? The next few years under the Charter of Refoundation will undoubtedly test the resilience of Niger's political system and its people. As the country moves forward, the question looms: will this period of military rule lead to the stability Niger so desperately needs, or will it only reinforce the cycle of instability and authoritarianism that has plagued the region? In the face of mounting regional challenges and pressures from the international community, General Tiani's leadership will face scrutiny like never before. His success or failure will shape not only the future of Niger, but the broader trajectory of West Africa as it grapples with the challenges of democracy, governance, and security. Now the question is, where will Tiani take Niger in the upcoming years? General Abdourahamane Tiani's rise to power in Niger isn't just a local political shift. It has profound regional and international ramifications. The Charter of Refoundation may have altered the internal political landscape, but it is Tiani's stance on foreign policy, particularly his defiant position against regional powers and Western nations, that has truly shaped his presidency. From challenging West African regional bodies to confronting former colonial powers, Tiani has set a new course for Niger, one that reflects both the growing discontent within the country and his broader geopolitical vision. The first major step in Tiani's assertion of power on the regional stage came with Niger's decision, alongside Mali and Burkina Faso, to break away from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. This move wasn't merely a symbolic gesture. It was a direct challenge to a regional body that has been a fixture in West African political affairs since its formation in 1975. ECOWAS has long advocated for the promotion of democracy and the resolution of political crises through peaceful means. However, after the coup that ousted President Mohamed Bazoum in 2023, ECOWAS imposed harsh sanctions on Niger, demanding a quick return to civilian rule and the reinstatement of Bazoum. For Tiani and his supporters, ECOWAS's demands were not just misguided, they were an imposition on Niger's sovereignty. The Charter of Refoundation was, in part, a response to this external pressure, and by withdrawing from ECOWAS, Tiani has made it clear that Niger will chart its course, free from the influence of external powers dictating its internal affairs. This break from ECOWAS is significant in the broader context of West Africa, where military juntas in Mali and Burkina Faso have also taken control in recent years. These countries, like Niger, have expressed growing dissatisfaction with ECOWAS and its perceived failure to understand the unique challenges they face. The growing trend of military takeovers in the region is a clear indication that the traditional structures of West African governance are under intense strain. ECOWAS's insistence on restoring civilian governments has been seen by these military leaders as an unrealistic expectation, given the complex security challenges and internal divisions within their countries. By aligning with Mali and Burkina Faso, Tiani is signaling a broader regional shift, one where military leaders and their supporters are increasingly rejecting the constraints of regional organizations in favor of stronger, more centralized authority. This growing bloc could have far-reaching implications for the future of West Africa's political landscape, especially if the military regimes in these countries manage to consolidate power and push for greater regional autonomy. But Tiani's defiance doesn't stop at the regional level. His stance against France, the former colonial power, has been perhaps the most publicly visible aspect of his presidency. Niger, like many other former French colonies in Africa, has a complex and often contentious relationship with France. For years, French troops have been stationed in Niger under the pretense of combating Islamist insurgencies in the Sahel region. These forces, as part of Operation Barkhane, were intended to stabilize the region and prevent the spread of insurgent groups. However, many Nigerians, particularly under Tiani's leadership, have come to view the presence of French forces not as a form of protection, but as a symbol of foreign intervention and neo-colonial control. Tiani's call for the immediate withdrawal of French troops from Niger is therefore a bold, albeit risky statement. It is not just about military presence, it is about reasserting Niger's sovereignty and independence in a region where France's influence has been pervasive for decades. Tiani's anti-French rhetoric has resonated strongly with many Nigerians who feel that their country has been under the thumb of foreign powers for far too long. The appeal of his leadership lies in his rejection of Western influence, coupled with a promise to protect Niger's independence. Tiani has positioned himself as a defender of national dignity, promising to reclaim the country's sovereignty from the control of former colonial masters. His position has struck a chord, especially with the younger generation, who see the continued presence of French forces as a symbol of exploitation and historical subjugation. Yet, this anti-Western stance has also provoked sharp criticism from the West, particularly France. The French government has condemned Tiani's actions, calling them destabilizing for the region and counterproductive in the fight against insurgency. The withdrawal of French forces could have serious implications for the security situation in the Sahel, where insurgent groups remain a significant threat. France, as the former colonial power, has long viewed the Sahel as its sphere of influence, and the loss of Niger, one of its last remaining strongholds in the region, is a blow to its strategic interests. Tiani's decision to expel French troops has made him a hero to many in Niger, but a pariah to Western powers who see the move as a direct challenge to their dominance in Africa. This rift with France and ECOWAS places Niger in a precarious position. While Tiani's actions have garnered significant support domestically and among some regional allies, they have also isolated Niger from the international community. The West, and especially France, has made it clear that they will not support Niger's military government, and sanctions could soon follow. However, Tiani is betting that his popularity at home and the support of other anti-Western regimes in the region will be enough to offset any international backlash. In a region that has long struggled with political instability, Tiani is positioning himself as a leader who is not afraid to break from the old order. The broader implications of Tiani's foreign policy are still unfolding, but one thing is certain: his leadership is reshaping Niger's role in the Sahel and beyond. As Niger moves further away from the influence of ECOWAS and France, it is positioning itself as a new player in the shifting geopolitical landscape of West Africa. Whether this shift will lead to greater stability or increased isolation remains to be seen. But Tiani's stance against regional powers and the West is a clear indication that the future of Niger will not be dictated by external forces. As Tiani consolidates his power, both regionally and internationally, the world will be watching closely to see how his bold decisions will impact the fragile balance of the Sahel. As General Abdourahamane Tiani takes the helm of Niger, his leadership is greeted with a mix of optimism, skepticism, and deep concern. His rise to power was met with celebrations by many Nigerians who had grown disillusioned with the inefficiency, corruption, and failures of previous civilian governments. Tiani's military coup, which ousted President Mohamed Bazoum in 2023, was, in many ways, the culmination of years of political frustration. But as Tiani solidifies his grip on power, the central question remains: is his leadership truly born out of popular legitimacy, or is it merely another chapter in Niger's long history of military rule? Tiani's supporters, particularly in the aftermath of his swearing-in as president under the Charter of Refoundation, see him as a beacon of hope, a leader who has finally taken decisive action in a country long plagued by political instability. His supporters argue that the transition to military rule is not a matter of authoritarianism, but of necessity. After years of political turmoil, coupled with poor governance and a failing security situation, many Nigerians are grateful for a leader who promises to bring order to the chaos. The Charter of Refoundation itself, which outlines a clear 5-year transition, offers a sense of direction and purpose that had been sorely lacking under Bazoum's leadership. It suggests that Tiani's rule is not an arbitrary power grab, but a plan for national renewal. For these supporters, Tiani represents a break from the past. Under previous governments, political corruption, military instability, and a failing economy left Niger in a state of perpetual crisis. The leadership had been seen as ineffective in addressing the needs of the people, and the country's reliance on external forces, particularly France, left many Nigerians feeling disenfranchised and powerless. Tiani's rise, therefore, is seen as an opportunity for change. He is, to them, the embodiment of national pride and sovereignty, a man who can finally free Niger from the clutches of foreign interference and internal dysfunction. Tiani's calls for sovereignty and self-determination, alongside his explicit rejection of the traditional democratic structures, have earned him the admiration of many. His stance against France and his decision to withdraw from ECOWAS resonate strongly with the general population, who have long viewed these foreign influences as a source of oppression. The widespread dissatisfaction with Niger's political systems has created an opening for Tiani, who has positioned himself as the champion of Nigerian nationalism. He promises a future free from the impositions of foreign powers, one where Niger will dictate its destiny without interference. However, while Tiani's popularity among certain sections of the population is undeniable, his rule also raises significant concerns about the erosion of democratic freedoms and the long-term implications for civil rights. As with many military leaders, Tiani's rise to power came at the expense of the democratic systems that were previously in place. By dissolving political parties and sidelining civilian institutions, Tiani has concentrated power in his own hands and is effectively ruling through military authority. While he may have the support of those who want change, there is a real fear that this consolidation of power will lead to an entrenched authoritarian regime that could stifle dissent, restrict press freedom, and curtail the rights of Niger's citizens. In any democracy, the presence of political opposition serves as a check on government power, holding leaders accountable and ensuring that the will of the people is respected. Under Tiani's leadership, however, the opposition has been silenced, leaving no room for alternative voices to challenge the direction in which the country is headed. This absence of political competition not only undermines the legitimacy of Tiani's rule, but also places Niger at risk of becoming another military dictatorship, where dissent is punished and freedoms are curtailed. Furthermore, the Charter of Refoundation offers little in the way of safeguards for human rights or civil liberties. With the dissolution of political parties, the media and civil society organizations are left without the checks and balances that are typically afforded to a functioning democracy. Tiani has already demonstrated a willingness to suppress opposition voices, and his strong ties to the military, a force with its interests and agenda, create an environment in which dissent could be stifled through force rather than dialogue. In this context, the promises of democracy made by Tiani and his supporters ring hollow. Without a political opposition or independent institutions to hold the government accountable, it becomes increasingly difficult to see how Niger can avoid falling into the trap of authoritarianism. For many, The key question is whether Tiani will eventually allow for a return to civilian rule, or whether he will remain firmly entrenched in power. The flexibility of the Charter of Refoundation, which permits the extension of Tiani's rule beyond the initial 5-year transition period, only adds to the uncertainty. Given the volatile security situation in the Sahel and the deep-rooted challenges facing Niger, there is little to suggest that Tiani will voluntarily relinquish power after 5 years. Instead, there is a growing concern that his leadership will become a permanent fixture in Niger's political landscape, perpetuating a cycle of military rule that has characterized much of the country's history. The fear of continued military rule is not unfounded. Historically, military governments in the Sahel region have shown a tendency to hold on to power long after their initial period of transition has ended. In neighboring Mali and Burkina Faso, military juntas have clung to power for years, promising eventual returns to civilian governance that have not materialized. Tiani's consolidation of power mirrors these trends, and his ability to extend his rule without facing significant political challenges suggests that he may be in a position to remain in control for the long term. Despite the promising start and popular support, the path ahead for Niger remains uncertain. While Tiani's leadership may have been born out of genuine frustration with the failures of democracy, it risks becoming a system where power is concentrated in the hands of one man and the military. Whether Niger can transition back to a truly democratic system, or whether it will be caught in the cycle of military rule, will depend largely on the decisions made by Tiani in the coming years. For now, people love him, and that's the reason why he is in power. The question remains, will his leadership ultimately lead to a stronger, more stable Niger, or will it prove to be just another chapter in the country's tumultuous history of military dominance? Let us know in the comment section. Do people want him? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.